Listen, ladies and gentlemen, you don't need me to tell you. Galaxy Heroes is all about farming, then scrapping to get that next upgrade. My God, Gary, that sounds like a great song if I've ever heard one. And today what I want to talk about are 15 of the most underrated, slept on relics that people are ignoring. I need you guys to stop ignoring these relics. I looked at some data and characters. I would think you guys have more relics on. Don't worry. I'm partly at fault too with even some of my own roster stuff. But it blew me away about some of these relics that aren't being upgraded on key characters that really can transform your roster that your opponent is sleeping on too, I promise you. And we're not going to talk about the obvious ones, like get your Galactic Legends up and running, upgrade your Piet, and your all that other stuff. We want to talk about kind of these underground type of characters that have meaningful benefit to your roster. Let's get to it. First, I'm going to start off with this kind of what sparked this idea for this video, because the other day we talked about fleets, ranking all the fleets, talking about counters in depth, and a common question I was getting were like, how high should I upgrade my Plo? What about my Geonosians? Because a lot of these high level plays hinge on having your relics dialed in. So we have about half of this list is dedicated towards ship exclusive stuff, and then the other bit is going to be characters and some kind of in between, both benefiting the characters as well as the ship side of things. So Plo, let's start off with this bad boy here. What Plo is bringing to the table, especially with people taking a greater interest in the Marauder, their negotiator. Maybe you're just taking a greater interest in fleets. You want to get your Plo as high as possible in the relic levels, especially if you want, like, for example, a consistent counter with negotiator versus the executor. Your biggest threat are the opponent's IG-2000s, which at Relic 9, IG-2000 can reach 195 speed. And if you don't understand how ship speeds work, to keep it brief and simple, the more relics you put into a unit, more gear, I should say, as well, the better the rarity of mods that you throw on. So 5 versus 6, and upgrading the abilities will affect the ship's speed. And if you have a high relic Plo, you're going to be able to get beyond that maximum speed that IG-2000 can hit. You can then trigger a pre-taunt on any character of your choosing. That is a powerful ship ability, and it enables you to take your negotiator with or without Marauder to take down things like the executor. And too often people have these low relic or non-geared up Plos, and I don't blame you. He's not the best character in the world, but then you're setting yourself up for failure trying to pull off these solid counters that the negotiator has to offer. But I guess on the bright side, if you do want me to convince you on the character a bit, he could be used as a Star Killer. He's actually one of my preferred units to use for Star Killer and Grand Arena. He's got a buff this spell, which is nice. He's got some turn meter because he's a tank. He can pre-taunt with Star Killer being active in Grand Arena. So I highly recommend get your Plo up and running. Mine's Relic 8. It gets the job done to make sure we edge out those IG-2000s. And see, as you can see, not being at Relic 9, I'm missing out on 3 speed. And if you get any lower in the relics, all of a sudden the executor gets a lot more complicated for a negotiator. So don't ignore Plo. I honestly think he might be the most underestimated relic in the game. And I get it, we only have so many relics to go around, but if you have time and you're really trying to improve your negotiator, this is one of the best ways to make yourself competitive versus those bigger fleets out there. Iden Versio, this is going to be mostly in relation to the ship, but she's a great character. I don't need to convince you on that. So you could utilize her in things like, for example, the Imperial Troopers or the Special Forces, I like to call them. But really what we're hinging on is the TIE Defender. TIE Defender's been an instrumental part inside of Grand Arena, and if you don't know, it's one of the fastest ships in the game, 218 speed. But Arnold, the TIE Defender's a reinforcement. Why does the speed matter? Ha! Well, sit down, Jimbo. Let me tell you what we got here. So once you get the TIE Defender out, what do you want TIE Defender to do? You want the TIE Defender to dodge a lot, right? Well, once the TIE Defender, does all her fancy stuff, she's able to generate lots of foresight, but she needs to take a turn to get some crits, try to get some foresight on her, have the enemy try to force the hitter, and get some dodges, and therefore, as a result, we're generating tons and tons and tons and tons of turn meter to our own capital ship. Triple turn meter for Empire capital ships. So if you can make your TIE Defender high relic, she's going to get more turns, get more foresight, more dodges, therefore feeding more turn meter to your Chimera primarily, or you might be using it with Executrix. I've seen some people use it, for example, with things like the Executor. But furthermore, what the relics are really important is it also ensures she could survive longer. Yes, she's got lots of foresight. Yes, she's got fantastic dodge on her, even when she has no foresight. But hits are going to land at least a third of the time. If we just go by rough probability, or 2/3 of the time, hits are going to be landed. You want to make sure she can eat up those hits as much as possible. I recently took her to Relic 9. She was my first and I think my only Relic 9 I've done so far in 2024. And I think it's really paid off dividends. It makes especially the Leviathan counter super consistent. Relic 9 probably overkill, but I like her a lot. If you can take her to Relic 8, it's going to be great. You see what I did there? And she's an attacker, so Relic 8 really benefits a character like her. So I think this is one that doesn't need a lot of convincing. Amazing ship, great character. Don't sleep on it. These next two, I will admit, these are a little painful. IG-88, Xander Blood, we're going to kind of merge them together as, two things for one. This is in relation to the Executor. Now, obviously, if we're making like the best relics guide, and we talked about the best Relic 9s, the best Relic 8s, and I'm sure there's a lot of other great resources out there for people to kind of repeat the same thing as I have as well. IG-88 and Xander Blood are generally the ones that people sleep on. Hence why we're talking about a sleeper relic list. Primarily, we focus on things like upgrading Piet from 8 to 9, upgrading your Houndstooth, never wrong, upgrading Boss, right? Great tank, yeah, I don't need convincing on that. Oftentimes, IG-88, Xander Blood, people don't really put too much into them, and I don't blame you. They're not great bounty hunters. There are better bounty hunters available to us, but there's a few things going on here. We talked about Plo, right? Well, if you want to mitigate the chances of someone being able to use their Negotiator versus your Executor, if you want to mitigate the opportunities of people using Finalizer, more importantly, versus your Executor, having a high relic IG 2000 is going to be great. It was a briefly painful Relic 9 to upgrade an IG 88 specifically, but it makes you faster. It really throws off key counters. You get more damage, more survivability. You have a lot of explosive opening plays. And at times, people are coming in at their minimum relic finalizer or their low gear Plo, and they're like, oh crap, I just got nuked. If you want to increase the viability of your Executor, you cannot go wrong investing in IG 2000 as well as Xanadu Blood. Xanadu Blood, you don't need to worry too much about relics as much, but the IG 2000 incredibly and so for defense. So put some relics towards them. Yes, we think we're done once we unlock the Executor. Oh, we're done. You generally aren't. Make sure your best Commando's up and running, your Boss, and your Piet. But we got to talk about the yin to the yang. Speaking of Executor, let's talk about the other side. We got ourselves the First Order Officer. And I'm definitely someone... I'll just say this. Do as I say, not as I do. On my free-to-play account, and I'm sure a lot of us are like this too, as I'm going to show it some data here in a moment. A lot of us, we kind of just, we unlock our Supremator Kyle Ren, and you leave it. You don't really do anything much at First Order Officer. But there's a big downside to not having a higher relic officer, and that means your TIE Echelon is not going to be nearly as durable. And I especially see things crumble apart so quickly in the realm of those higher relic IG 2000s and Xanadu Blood. It's like I'm trying to give you how to stop Finalizer, but at the same time, how to increase the viability of your Finalizer. Trying to invest, Relic 7 gets all the job done for me when I go up against these high relic IG 2000s and high relic Xanadu Bloods. Anything lower, especially the Relic 5 minimum, you're kind of in a danger zone where the opening play could really just decimate your TIE Echelon. Relic 7, generally it's going to survive whatever the Executor throws our way, and then I can heal it back up. It's such a great ship. Being able to it just goes back to full health, full protection so quickly in the First Order lineup. It's another one of those relics. It's only a 2. I recommend just a 2 relic boost. And again, do as I say, not as I do. I get we only have so many relics. We want to get the next Galactic Legend, the next big capital ship. But this is one of those where I feel like you will notice an improvement if you're using Finalizer consistently versus the Executor. Those 2 extra relic levels will go a long way. Now, this is probably going to be the last ship-specific relic I'm putting out before we talk about some other stuff here. Sith Assassin. Oh, God, this is another painful one. I only recommend this for those that are Leviathan owners. And then, the list is going to grow and grow. More people will get Leviathan over time. The character is fine. It's not a great character, not a bad character, but it doesn't need Relic 9. Ugh. But the reason why Sith Assassin is so important, especially you're in Fleet Arena, if you have a higher relic Sith Assassin than your opponent, you're going to win the mirror match. It also, the higher the relic your Sith Assassin is, the higher likelihood you have reducing the viability of opponents' Chimera lineups. If the other player doesn't have good relics in their Iden or their Chimera, a Sith fighter being at Relic 9 is really going to make it much more difficult to beat. So that's all there is to it. It's going to be faster. It's going to be more deadly for the Sith Assassin to get plays out there. Kind of like IG-88. It's kind of a painful relic, but at least you can use her in the Trail lineup, a Darth Revan lineup, Sith Eternal, so you can use her. It's just a little unnecessary for the character. So now let's talk about Ahsoka Tano. This is where we're going to kind of transition into benefiting the ship, of course, but it's also got great benefits for the character as well. Ahsoka Tano is a great relic to invest in. When you get Jedi Master Kenobi, for example, or anything that releases Ahsoka, a Padme Amidala item, she's going to be constantly assisting with her unique ability, constantly being able to call to assist. Don't you want her to hit as hard as possible? So that's one of the reasons why a high relic Ahsoka does go a long way. But the second reason why I really want to put it out here is more so for the ship here. The more relics you can put in Ahsoka, the faster she is. Let's just show you what the speeds are looking like here. So it's kind of like a close situation. I mean, you can see they're very close relative in speed. Ahsoka Tano, the more relics you can put on her, the better the opening play you can get. She can open up, do a quick buff dispel, clearing a taunt right away. And I think this is kind of instrumental. If you want to get Negotiator to beat Leviathan or Negotiator to beat Profundity, I think Ahsoka is pivotal to get out there, get the buff dispel, and that way when Kenobi shows up a little later on, and then Anakin, of course, you can just blitz down around the tank with the mass swarm ability. So that's pretty much the big reason here. A faster Ahsoka means a much better starfighter that she has, or in some situations, kind of a weird one, you want her to be survivable. In times like the Leviathan or Profundity, where she's going to be out in the open while Marauder and Anakin are chilling under stealth, you want her to survive as long as possible. So she's going to be kind of like a quasi-tank in a fleet arena setting. Can't go wrong with that. Geonosians, okay. Well, okay. Generally, people look at Geonosians in the following way. Once you unlock Watt, you kind of ignore them. I'm going to try to convince you guys not to do so. And these are going to be kind of 4 in 1. I would recommend at the minimum, try to take your Geonosian Spy and your Sun Fac as far as you can. Number 1, Sun Fac is a tank. It's going to eat up a lot more hits on the character side of things. Spy is going to hit a lot harder at Relic 8. He loves the Relic 8 amplifier from him. It's going to hit so much harder on the character side of things. But I want to focus on ships as well. For this here, having a high relic Geonosians is gonna increase the likelihood of you being able to decimate opponents' fleets. For me, I had my Geonosian Spy at like relic 5, 6, 7 for the longest time, and then when I was trying to be Profundity, I would notice Profundity had a high priority to blitz down Spy, and if I didn't have it relic 8, I feel like my Spy was like a 50-50 chance if it's gonna get nuked. The second I took it to relic 8, I noticed a vast improvement in my Geonosian counter versus Profundity. It was able to survive a lot longer, survive that opening bombardment that a Profundity lineup would throw down. But on top of it, you're going to get a big hits on the Geonosian Spy. If you're not landing the big hits of Geonosian Starfighter, you're missing on the big play. That's what it's all there for. And same thing as Sun Fac. It's the same thing where, just like the character side thing, you want the ship to be as durable as possible. So it's another one of those relics. At the minimum, I would recommend those two. Take them to Relic 8 if you can. They're great for the character, ship side of thing. Geonosian Soldier, I would say if you don't have the relics to spare, which we all don't have relics to spare at times, you can probably not worry as much about that. Generally, Soldiers in the reinforced, but sometimes you want to have a triple Geonosian starting lineup, and the more relics you put down, the more damage you're dishing out. Now, Geonosian Brood, it's one of those characters that people, again, you kind of leave at gear 12 and call it a day. I'm going to say, obviously, there's no ship here. The reason why I would recommend bolstering your Geonosian Brood, it's one of the best plug-and-play tanks. It's a 2-for-1 character special. The more relics you put in it, the more durable the Geonosian Brood is going to be. I can't tell you how many times just having a properly geared up, reliced up Geonosian Brood really just turns a tide of battle. I mean, like, it's one of those relics. I wish in my free-to-play account, I would just take some time to upgrade it because I use it so often. With the Sith Eternal, I was like, man, I wish my Brood can survive longer than like 2 hits. But I guess the good news is Bane's coming around, and likely we're going to see the Geonosian Brood Alpha get kind of edged down of favorability, and that's fine. It should be more thematic with Sith. So moving here on out, we're going to primarily focus on character-related relics. Before it was ship only, ship and character. These are character-specific relics I want to wrap up this video with. Marin. People are working towards Cal. That's going to be a big thing this year. A lot of people are going to get Cal, Jedi Knight Cal. Unlocked, definitely one of the best units that come out of 2023. But of course, even for Jedi Knight Cal, it's such a great relic, or such a good character. It brings the Night Sisters to incredible viability all of a sudden. But oftentimes people just like leave it at gear 12 and they're done. Just to unlock Jedi Knight Cal, I would urge you to try to upgrade your Marin as much as possible. Mainly because whenever a Night Sister allies revive, you're going to get the instant defeat immunity, of course. But the more relics you have, the more plague you're inflicting on the enemy. And just like the Night Sisters, all the work is coming from the plague. And when you have Night Sisters, zombies dying constantly, when you activate the Mother Talisman cheese and you're constantly reviving a sister, like every single turn and running a train, you want to get as much as possible. And every single relic you put on, you increase the likelihood of this ability working by 10%. So the more you put into it, the better it's going to be. I have it Relic 7. I just really feel like you got a nice consistency going. But again, go as far as you can. Relic 5 is kind of that golden standard most people stop at. And I think, Marin, a Relic 5 is fine. I took it to Relic 7 just for more of a luxury upgrade. But don't leave her at Gear 12 is the most important thing. Talking about Mace Windu. I'm just going to spoil. These last three are tank related right here. I was blown away by some of these numbers. And I'm the blame too here. You kind of just get comfortable with unlocking a specific unit. And you're like, I'm done. Look at my Chrysanthid Relic 5. We're going to talk about this in a moment. Let's come over. I want to show you these few guys right here. So the reason why these are here is that because people are ignoring them. Yours truly as well, as I just showed. It's okay. We're open kimono around here. So let me go ahead and just do a quick search here. And let's look up, for example, Windu. Now, Windu, what does he need at? Relic 3, right? 131,000 folks stopped him at Relic 3 just to get their Jedi Master Kenobi. And then afterwards, it's not great. I mean, you got some people that took it to Relic 5. This is one of the most slept on, underutilized characters, relics in the game. Mace Windu, I can't tell you enough, the higher the relic the Mace Windu, the more annoying it can be, whether it's in a Qui-Gon lineup, a Jedi Master Luke lineup, or it's going to be with a Jedi Master Kenobi. The more you can invest this guy, the more deadly he's going to become. And of course, he gets a lot of extra offense, he gets a lot of extra health, so the more relics you get, the more durable he's going to be. So I would recommend, even for those that are at Relic 5, we got to bump this up a little bit more. I have him at Relic 8, and I probably should take him to Relic 9, just because he's a tank, and he's going to get so much more benefit. Look at all that health and protection he's going to get. Oh, man. The longer Mace Windu's in battle, the more deadly he's going to be. With this whole Omicron unique ability territories, boy. Yeah, Relic 3, how about we move some of those numbers? We need to get that much further. I hope we can get that below 100,000 Relic 3 and move those people to like Relic 5, 6, 7, 8, and maybe even 9. His capital ship, if you have Marauder, you can do things with it. Definitely not as good as Negotiator. So if you don't have Negotiator and you have like Marauder, Anakin, and Windu, probably should upgrade the Relic too. It doesn't hurt as well. Doesn't hurt nearly as much in that regard. And if you're going to see a theme, it's going to be the same thing for Royal Guard and Chrysanthid. Royal Guard, people unlock Lord Vader, and they're like, all right, I'm done. I'm at Relic 3. I got my Lord Vader. Chrysanthid, oh, I got him at Relic 5. I'm good to go. Let me just show you the numbers. Again, I was blown away. I was, oh, man. Let's see. What's that, Roy? Oops. No. Yeah. Don't yell at me. Don't yell at me. There we go. Roy. So taking a look at Royal Guard. Where's he at here? Royal Guard. There he's at. There's he's at. 133,000 folks just parked it at Relic 3, and they didn't go any further. It's crazy. I mean, you have some that went to Relic 5, and you got some that, they went to Relic 9. I'm actually only 1,000 at Relic 9s. I mean, I'm not going to say go to Relic 9. It is a very great Relic 9. If you have Lord Vader, it's an important one. The longer your Royal Guard can survive, the much better off your Lord Vader is. And I know he says we underestimate his power, but if his Royal Guard's not standing up to the challenge, it's just not going to be the Lord Vader team's just not going to function nearly as well. So let's get those up and running. Relic 3 is way too low. And I'm going to point the finger at myself for this last one too, Chrysanthid. I was blown apart by this. Chrysanthid, we have 45,000 people that have a Chrysanthid at Relic 5. Now, obviously not as much as Royal Guard, but Chrysanthid is, Jabba, I think Jabba's still, he just passed his 1 year anniversary. So more people are still adapting their Chrysanthids and their Jabba the Hutts. But I urge you guys, as more people continue to unlock Jabba, now that we are all past the double drop rates for the accelerated characters, for the Jabba the Hutt requirements, I'm going to make this a thing myself. Let's upgrade those relics. And as someone who owns a Relic 9 on my main account and a Relic 5 on my free-to-play account, I took for granted how much more powerful Chrysanthid is at Relic 9. This is one of those, if you have Jabba, I highly urge it. Like, for example, I tried doing the event that Jabba has, a smuggler's run to get modding material. It's like, whoa, my Chrysanthid's dying so much faster than my main account with Relic 9. It was a massive noticeable difference. Duh, it's Relic 9 on a tank. But again, let's not just park it at Relic 5 and call it a day. let's up it a little bit more. So I hope this video is helpful. I truly do think if you spend some time upgrading some of these lesser loved characters that people are just blatantly ignoring from the data perspective. I'm too embarrassed to show the Plo data out. I want to see if you guys can find a time in your massive grinds that we're all dealing with to try to bolster up some of these things that are pertinent to you. If you have a negotiator, work on your Ahsoka, work on your Plo. If you have a Chimera, get that TIE Defender up and running. If you have an Executor, don't ignore these guys. If you have a Leviathan, this is probably the most slept on relic that makes a massive difference. Separatists can always get some love, and a couple of other things in between. Man, I'm curious to see if we're going to see some of those numbers maybe get shuffled around in the next couple months. But if you want to be the very best, sometimes you got to do some of those things that look crazy, but at the end of the day, it just shows you got some high IQs for those massive plays. Thank you for watching. Leave a like, comment down below. Let me know your other sleeper relics that you think maybe people should look on beyond just this and the obvious ones that we all know and love when it comes to Relic 8, Relic 9 upgrades. But until then, the one thing that's great and that's never being slept on is how it's always great to be in the Empire today.
Oh, it's great to be in the Empire today. The sun never sets.